Share my screen. I've got a presentation for y'all. And let me, there we go. So navigating the process. So this first slide is really to kind of go over kind of the basics of the different types of zoning that we have here in Dallas, just because a lot of people don't really understand what some of the differences are. So everyone has sort of a base zoning if you're residential, commercial, industrial, that sort of thing. And then you've got PDs and NSOs, which are kind of the next level of zoning. And those really cover like the development criteria. And they don't have an architectural component to them. Conservation and historic districts are where you get into adding those architectural components, and both of them are required. However, the differences are that while historic is quite rigid and their architectural requirements protect the entirety of the lot and all the way around the structures, conservation is much more lenient in regards to things like materials. Like we don't necessarily require the use of full wood windows if you want to use an aluminum window or a vinyl clad window rather, that's typically fine. And we usually don't go through the whole house. So we typically do what's called a wraparound, which is the front facade. And in some districts, it's the first 25 feet. In some districts, it's up to a midpoint of the structure that we calculate. And that's something that you all will be discussing. You know, if you guys decide to really push forward with this. So those are really kind of the differences. And if y'all have any questions, just chime in at any time. So the benefits of being a conservation district. Oh, yeah, go ahead, June.
Can you hear me? I'm like an old lady working on, you don't even know what I'm doing over here. But anyways, I don't want to waste a bunch of people's time.
Mhm.
So what I'm understanding, like I said, I really doubt that we could get a majority to even go as far as like historic. So, you know,
Mhm.
whatever.
I don't
But
think we want to do historic anyway. I've been,
no,
this is Tom. I live
no.
on 12th Street, and we
Mhm.
would want to do conservation.
Mhm.
Yeah, we're looking
Yeah,
at whatever you said that first one was and whatever the second one was. So I mean, I appreciate your time and your energy and your knowledge and all that, but I'd hate for you to just explain it all to us when I don't think there's really any
I
interest
think you're
in.
wrong. I think you're
Oh, I'm
wrong. The
sorry.
neighbors
Oh
we've
Oh,
yeah,
spoken
I'm
with,
no.
sorry.
yeah,
Oh, I'm
the neighbors
sorry.
we've
Well,
spoken with, because we have we have the oldest home in the neighborhood, and we are very interested in it. And the other neighbors that we've spoken with are all very interested in this. To say that it's a waste of time or that people don't need the information, I think does a huge disservice to the community.
no. I wasn't saying.
So I think we just let her go ahead and explain things to us. Thank you.
Okay. So the benefits of choosing to be a conservation district. So it really does kind of provide stability in a lot of neighborhoods. At the end of this year, there's about to be a report that the city has commissioned that will go into a lot of the economic benefits of being in these types of districts like conservation or historic. Um, and you know, it really does go to show that stability provides that longevity for a neighborhood, and I think conservation can really help do that. Oops. Sorry, it's not moving to the next slide. There we go. So if you guys opt to become a conservation district, this is kind of the timeline. And I know that it seems like a lot. There are a lot of these that happen in kind of quick succession. So it's not as much as it quite seems. Like a lot of these steps will be kind of lumped together all at once. So really the way it works is that you guys form a neighborhood committee. Do you guys know about how many houses in the potential district that you're thinking of doing?
I'm not
Nicole.
sure the number of houses in the number of houses in the neighborhood. So that's something we'd have to actually do a count of.
Right.
Well, we
So-
span a very large area. So just from Hampton to Ravinia to Jefferson to 12th Street.
Mhm.
So, I mean, we're talking about
Yeah, that's a pretty big
at
area.
least 500 houses.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
because
Yeah, so
Perfect.
for
Yeah.
that you would probably want a minimum of like 12 to 15 neighborhood committee members, if maybe not even a little bit more. I know that some districts they formed like block captains and they kind of did their neighborhood committee that way. So to start off, becoming a conservation district, what you guys would have to do initially is once your committee is formed, you would need to submit a determination of eligibility. And right now, the determination of eligibility, the sooner you do that, the sooner you can hold your place in line, because we do have quite a lot of districts on our plate and not a whole lot of staffing to quickly get them done. So it's taking us a while. Right now, if you guys got in today, you would be like number 7th or 8th in line, which means we're talking about 3 or 4 years before we could even get to your district.
Oh, geez. Okay. Because I'm sure we probably wouldn't be able to get everything rolling until January, with the holidays coming up and getting the committees together.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And all of that, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So the
we'd be looking at
determination.
4 to 5 years.
Right, yeah. So the
Can I ask-
determination, yeah. No, go
Sorry,
ahead.
it's Nicole. My
Oh.
call is on hold for work right now, so I
Oh.
had a minute to pop on.
Mhm.
One question I did hear from other people is, I know we're Kessler Ravinia. Is there any way that we can do this separated? Like if, can it be just Kessler or Ravinia Heights, or does it have
Oh,
to
yeah.
be conjoined?
No, it can be however you guys want to do it. If there's a predominance of people on one side that don't seem very interested, then it's probably better to leave them out of the process. Because this is going to be done by consensus. So all the decisions made, you want people that are enthusiastic about it and want it. There's not going to be everybody that's happy. That never quite gets there, but yeah, you don't have to, I mean, it does have to be uniform, so we couldn't like skip blocks in an area. They do have to be connected, but if there was an entire street that didn't want to be in it, or a majority of the street, then they could, yeah, you could change the boundary of where you want that.
Okay, well,
Melissa?
that's good because it is a very big area, and Ravinia Heights is more historic than Kessler Plaza.
Mhm.
Not that makes any difference, but I know that, like, for example, our house is 150 years. That puts us kind of in a different category than something built in the 70s.
Right.
Melissa, could I
Yes. Mhm.
ask a quick question for clarification?
Yeah.
I would, I was involved in a group that kind of explored this topic a few years ago, and I
Mhm.
vaguely remember some of it, but I obviously need to get updated on some of the eligibility requirements. But I
Mhm.
remember that we spoke about the fact that it needed to be a contiguous
Mhm.
area that, and in that regard, that it's also not just the property majority, but you can also go by size, like your property size. If you get a percentage of property
Yes.
size majority, you don't necessarily have to get the individual
Yes,
majority. Is that
it would.
correct?
Yes, it's you can also it also looks by land. So if there is somebody that say owns 10 different properties, then their voice will get a higher rating because they'll be allowed to say they'll be allowed to voice it 10 times for each property, right?
But
So,
additionally, if your property is larger in size, doesn't
Yeah,
that
very
yes.
also
large.
affect?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
And I mentioned that only because I think that strategically, if there is an interest in it, that's something that should be considered because you may be able to reach your mark faster if you have a greater interest in a concentrated area. Would that be fair to say?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And just briefly going back to, I think something June was referencing when you
Did
were
we
talking
lose
about the
our moderator?
facades. I'm
Mhm.
sorry. I was just going to ask about the facades. Did you just mean that that was something that a characteristic that you have to that it's that you're that has to be similar, or can you speak to that a little bit more?
So that would be an area that's regulated. So say that so take for instance, like we're working on Stevens Park Village right now, and they
Hmm.
have approximately 140 houses, and about 135 of those are all the exact same style of house,
I
right?
see.
So what we do is we have what's called the wraparound, and that's considered the area of regulation. And usually it's the front facade and then a portion of the side facades. Basically, kind of what you can see from the street is what gets relegated to make sure that the architecture of that portion stays architecturally correct, right? And
Hmm.
that's going to be a little bit dependent on you guys and what you want. So typically things that we would regulate would be windows, the roof form and pitch, and front porches. Those are kind of the big ticket items that for most houses, those are the things that are gonna really determine what kind of style the house is. So
And
when we
that's in the conservation district.
yes, yes, we do require an architectural component. It's just
Okay.
not all the way around the house, and it's not as strict as historic is.
Okay.
Hmm. So, like a lot of times with it, like I was saying earlier with historic, if you had to replace your window, your front on your front facade, and it was a wood window, they would require you to go back with a wood window. We wouldn't, we would be fine with a vinyl window. We might just ask that, like, if your window was had like a specific grid pattern, that maybe your new window also continue that grid pattern on it. Um, so things like that.
Okay.
Yeah, but we allow for other materials, like you don't have to do wood siding if you want to use hardy board, that's totally fine. Like we're much more lenient when it comes to the materials. Um, so once you guys do your determination of eligibility, and there'll be an editing period, so you guys can if you want to submit that, if you guys decide as a neighborhood that you guys are ready for this and you want to submit it. That'll hold your place in line. When we're ready to start up with you, we'll probably alert you a solid like 6 months ahead of time. We should be able to kind of see what's coming down the pipeline, and that'll kind of let you know that you need to be getting active in the neighborhood. Your neighborhood committee that you form will need to be getting active in the neighborhood, and spreading the word about the meetings that are going to be coming up, and what this really might mean. So you want to get committee members that really know a lot of people in the neighborhood, and can really speak towards some of this. So those pre-application meetings, they'll be kind of similar to the information that I'm presenting tonight. And we have to hold at least 2 of them, but we can hold more if that becomes necessary. And at the end of those meetings, you guys have 14 days to decide is if you guys are pursuing this and what items that you want to protect. So that's why we're going to kind of initiate you 6 months ahead of time, because you would need to be honing in on the list of items that would go on that petition early. Because once those pre-application meetings are over, that petition has to be turned around really quick, and you guys are up and running to get petitions signed by the neighborhood. Now, you will have 12 months to get the petition signed. And it has to be a wet signature. And we usually print it on blue paper so that you know that you're getting back like that original copy, and it's not a copy. So this happens after the final pre-application meeting. To initiate the process of the zoning change to become a conservation district, you need at least 58% of either the property ownership or the land area. So once we get those petitions back, we'll verify how much of a percentage you've got. If you get up to 75% of the neighborhood that signs on, we waive the fee for the zoning change. And I believe for a district of your size, it's like $2,500. It's a pretty significant amount. So, and getting up to 75% at the beginning is actually really good if you can manage to do that. It makes the process a little bit easier because you start off kind of all on the same page. Whereas when you've only got 58%, sometimes that can lead to, there's a lot more contention, a lot more disagreement between what you guys actually want. Which is why I say, 500 houses is a lot. So if you want to split up Kessler and Ravinia, that's completely acceptable. It can be easier to piecemeal, and you can always either do one as an expansion, or it can be its complete own district if that's what it wants later on down the road. So once we verify the petitions, again, a minimum of 75%, we waive the fees. And this does initiate the process. So I want to be very clear. If you are signing the petition, you are signing on to help initiate and write a conservation district ordinance. This is not just like, we'll be discussing what's going to go in it, but this is not a conversation about whether or not we're going to do an ordinance anymore. You're past that phase at that point, right? You guys have decided by signing that petition. So I want to be very clear about that. And when the neighborhood committee goes around, you guys need to be clear about that too, because we don't want people signing a petition and then halfway through the process they realize that this is actually going to be going to city council and getting codified, and then they start to panic because they think that they were misled, if they thought that was still up for debate. So you want to be really honest with your neighbors, because you're going to have to continue living next to them, right? So we want to be honest throughout this whole process. It gets us a lot further. Yeah.
So Melissa,
So,
just to recap, the first things that we need to do is establish basically a committee, and it sounds like it may be easier to do it per neighborhood, and then start that discussion within that group. So that's like the first step we need to take.
Yes. And your neighborhood committee really will be the ones that are kind of doing that determination of eligibility to get the ball rolling. So that's going to mean a little bit of research and a little bit of history on the neighborhood. Luckily, there's already a lot of history written on y'all's neighborhood, so it should be fairly easy to find. But you are going to have to come to some decisions, and because we're going to need a summary of, really why do you guys want this? Is it encroaching development? Is it, incompatible new builds that are coming in? Is there, some huge, apartment complex coming in that you guys weren't prepared for? What exactly is it that the neighborhood is concerned about?
I think we kind of got a shot over the bow with this learning pod that kind of snuck in, and I think that's what's got a lot of neighbors thinking, "What the heck?"
Yeah, I can see that. So once you guys have the petitions and you turn them in, we'll let you know, and we'll let you know that you guys have been approved, and we'll then activate the neighborhood committee again, because then we'll have to start scheduling for what we call the post-application meetings. And those are the meetings where we're gonna discuss what's gonna go into the ordinance. Once we finish those meetings and city staff feels like we have enough information from you guys to determine what's going to be in the ordinance, we'll kind of go back for a little to our offices for a little while, and we'll create what's called a conceptual plan. And we'll post that plan. Typically what we do once a neighborhood is kind of initiated, we create a web page for you, and all the documentation that comes up, every presentation, the audio of all the meetings, everything we put on a website for you guys, so anybody can go back if they missed a meeting, and still provide feedback. So we'll put that on the website, and you guys can review it, and then we'll have a couple more meetings, and we'll discuss, did we get it right? Are there things that need to be edited? Are there things that need to be taken out, or things that need to be added? And we'll edit from there, and then we'll go back and we'll draft the ordinance. And then we'll do the same thing. We'll post that. You guys will have some time to review, and then we'll have a couple more meetings where we review that draft ordinance. And if everything is good to go, we move on to CPC, and if they approve, on to City Council. And if they approve, it's typically a 30-day waiting period so that the neighborhood can be notified, and then the ordinance is officially codified, and you are a conservation district at that point.
Melissa?
Wonderful.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You mentioned an expansion option. Can you expound on that a little bit?
So it's similar to like what Lakewood just went through. Their original district was created in 1988, and they didn't want to be a separate district because they are part of Lakewood on this other end, closer to White Rock Lake. So they initiated an expansion, and what they did is they just became a separate tract. So they are part of Lakewood, but they're just a separate tract with their own regulations. So the process is the same for the most part, although your deadlines are a little bit quicker when it's an expansion. I don't necessarily recommend an expansion as opposed to a new district, because I think being a new district, you get a little bit more of the kind of initial information than with an expansion goes really quickly, I will say, at the beginning. And I think that it can be a little bit overwhelming for people. And I think that that's why Lakewood got a little bit contentious towards the end. I would recommend a separate district if that's what you guys are going to do. That would be, my professional recommendation. Any other questions so far?
I guess one question I have
Yeah.
for the neighbors on the call, is there already a committee that we're aware of that's formed, so that we don't have to kind of go through that? I know that there's the neighborhood.
Yes.
Okay, there is. Great.
Yeah, the issue we ran.
I'm sorry, I've lost you. Can you say it again?
The issue was that the person who spearheaded it was
ended up moving and COVID, and we had several meetings, but that consensus from the beginning was people didn't want certain paint colors and things of that nature. And with all the different types of architecture,
Oh, your voice keeps going in and out.
Yeah, I can barely hear what has been said.
Yeah, I can't hear it either.
Okay, I'm gonna continue.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So the items that go on the petition, there are certain things that we have to have on the petition that at least have to be up for discussion. You don't necessarily have to regulate all of these, but they at least have to be on the petition to be discussed. That covers development criteria and some architectural standards. There are also items that you can add. These do not have to be on there, but you can add them if you want to. But if you think that there's an item that's going to be really, really contentious, like paint colors or something like that, then you can choose to not put it on. And this is by no means a comprehensive list. I'll show you an image of a sample petition here coming up in a couple more slides. But I just kind of have a few slides to show what some of the kind of benefits of being in a conservation can be. And especially with you guys being so close to Kessler, there's a lot of cohesiveness with the architecture, and similar to like the M streets, there's a lot of cohesiveness. This is two districts that are right up against each other, but you can see that even though they're different districts, there's still sort of a harmony between the districts. And hopefully, if you're worried about things like this happening, hopefully we can help prevent that if that's something that you're concerned with. Potential, development coming in. Here's another district, very cohesive again, a lot of craftsmen's in Belmont. And then this one with the more modern and contemporary builds, this was a concern. This is not a district, so they can build whatever they want. But I know that some of the neighbors are not happy with some of the builds that are encroaching in on them. Similar to CD6, again, there's a very, very much a similarity in the architecture, and it really kind of helps, keep harmony throughout the neighborhood. And this is why Stevens Park Village came to us. The top photo is what used to be there, which is what we would call gentle density, where you've got an apartment complex, but it's not quite so overwhelming. And then they demolished it, and now this is what's up, and it's Stevens Park Village is back here, but you can't see it at all anymore. So this is what they were worried about encroaching on their neighborhood, trying to prevent. And we'll look at things like this where, we're looking at setbacks and seeing the development patterns of your neighborhood. That's going to be something to kind of summarize in your determination of eligibility. Will be things that you see that are common in the architecture and the development of your neighborhood. So here's kind of a sample of a petition. As I said, it's a long list. There are a lot of things that you can put on it. What we tend to do is we want to be, no, I don't want to say vague, but we want to be able to have a conversation. So what gets put on the petition is something that is detailed enough to have the conversation, but not so detailed that you're backed into a corner as to what you can actually discuss. So I put kind of an example here with fences. Like, You don't want to just have put fences. That's a little bit too broad. What is it about fences specifically? Are you worried about the height of the fence? Are you worried about fence materials? You know, maybe you don't want a concrete block fence coming into your neighborhood. Or are you worried about location? There's a lot of neighborhoods that don't have front yard fences or, you know, things like that. So having those types of things are okay. Being a little bit too detailed, like saying we only want to allow for 6-foot board on board wood fences and they can only be in the backyard. Like that's way too specific, right? That doesn't allow us to have a conversation so that the neighbors can give their input. We want to make sure that we leave it broad enough. But these are the things that you'll have to think about when you're talking about that petition language. And, you know, once we get closer to that, I will have more meetings with like the neighborhood committee to kind of get them to, you know, hone in on what this is. Yes, June.
I'm sorry. I get the conservation part, and I think I'm pretty clear on the historical part, but wasn't there another one that was like less restrictive?
The NSO and NSO that covers
Yeah.
only development criteria. So there would be no architectural component with that one. If the only things that you're worried about are, say, like the height of structures and maybe the setbacks, then that's probably the type of zoning that is better for your neighborhood. We're specifically, if you guys want to protect that and have that architectural component, then that's where we come in.
Right, but can you do both, or do
Yes,
you have
yes.
to
Oh,
do?
yes, all the development criteria comes along with us. We just add in the
Right,
architectural is an add-in. Yes. Mhm.
and isn't it easier to get the first one and like maybe make sure that we don't have a McMansion and then worry about fences and other stuff later? And is that
I mean, if you guys want to pursue an NSO now and get that done, I don't know what the wait period for that is. That's done by current planning. But I could find out that information for you. Um, and
right? But I meant
let y'all
even
know.
like, can we do that and then later change to conservation and then
Yes.
later change?
Yes, absolutely. That's actually so Kid Springs right now we're just starting them up and they are currently under a PD. And it's only a portion of their neighborhood that now has decided that they want to come forward with a CD. So yes, if you want to do that in the interim and be an NSO while you're waiting in line because the queue is long, then
Right.
absolutely you can do that. And I'm
And
happy
so
to.
how do we do that again? Is that on the site? I'm sorry, did I miss it?
So I can get that information for you via email. It's
Okay.
my department, but it's a different section, and I don't know a whole lot about about their side since I do just conservation.
Right, right. Okay,
I
great.
don't know. From my
Thank
perspective,
you.
I'm so much more afraid of big, like someone taking over the Ravinia Mansion, 7 acres, and building a huge apartment complex there. So I would rather not screw around with a lesser form, but just to go forward with what we have going for the conservation district. And that's just my opinion. And I think
Well,
that's why the committee would be formed.
right. I think what she's saying is that because there's such a long wait for conservation that in the interim, it may be something to consider to be an NSO to kind of get the ball rolling on some of those things like height restrictions. Because if you can get a height restriction, that's really going to regulate a lot of those developers that are coming in and want to do really tall apartment complexes or something like that. So you could at least put some temporary restrictions on what you currently have, right? So
Melissa,
Christine?
yeah.
I'm sorry, can y'all hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I just wanted to, I dropped it in the chat, just kind of the context of where I was speaking, but couldn't be heard. So that's kind of where we left off. Holly and I were working towards the neighborhood stabilization overlay to get that information out to the neighbors and kind of start there as an initial process. And then we could look at moving forward, because again, the committee has changed. There were differences on, like, some people wanted to regulate certain paint colors, the fences, driveways in the front, garages. I mean, so we felt like that was an initial first protection that would be important. And so that's kind of where the process has left off. And then in the meantime, this conversation came about, which I think is a good conversation, because if we're going to keep the neighborhoods combined, I mean, I feel like we need representation from both areas. If we do look at separating it, because the issue that we ran into previously was, you know, the styles are different, houses were built at different times. So we really would have to make different sub-districts or subsections to incorporate all the different types of
Well, and
homes.
we could do that in tandem and still be the same district. You guys could just be different tracks if you wanted to run them in tandem. It might mean a little bit more finagling on our part. We just have to be mindful of the types of architecture that are in specific areas, if that's where the line is being drawn, so to speak. But that would be on us. But I don't think that that's impossible. We have plenty of districts that have multiple tracks. Some deal with different things. You know, we have is in Kings Highway, we have some sub districts that are just single family and some that include multifamily, some that include commercial. So we can adapt the ordinance to whatever y'all's needs are. So if that means doing a sub area or two sub areas, we can totally do that.
And I think that'll be important to have in the conversations going forward, because it would be necessary just given the style of homes.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Oops. Okay.
Emily and Melissa,
Yes.
thank you, Emily, for catching us up to speed on that. And on the NSO, does that address more than just height? Would it address Tom's concern about large lot being broken down into, you know, a whole bunch of smaller or townhomes or apartments?
So an NSO covers anything that's in the development criteria. So yes to that answer.
Okay.
So that'll depend on a consensus by you guys, if you can get that done. But yes, those things would absolutely be included.
Thank you.
And the reason I mentioned that is because we had some people back, you know, as we were going through the discussions, they were worried because they didn't want a big house built, or they didn't want someone adding a ginormous second story or something that looks right into their yard or over their house. And so those were kind of, just for background, how those conversations came about and why that would be a good initial first start. And then we could move forward from there.
Yeah, and that's a pretty standard concern amongst everyone that's pursuing us, is this kind of looming development that's coming in, because all the developers are trying to max out their lots. And that makes it hard when everybody is right on top of each other.
So kind of a practical question about that. Is there a cost that is also associated with the NSO while we would do conservation work? Were you able to hear me?
I caught some of it. I think I missed the last part. Could you repeat that?
Yeah. Is there a cost associated with the NSO while we are doing the conservation work?
I would assume there is, because it would be, well, actually, let me backtrack on that. I'll have to look into that because it's technically an overlay. So I don't know if it's considered a full zoning change. I'll look into that for you and I'll let you know, though.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think there was from our past research.
Yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, it's an overlay, so it's not a zoning change, whereas we are a complete change to the base layer zoning. So that's how we differ. All of these other types of zoning, they are all overlays. And they can change as the development criteria changes. Whereas we do the development criteria, so if something in the code changes, your ordinance will still stand to say what you guys wanted. So that's another benefit to being conservation.
And I
So
was going to ask Melissa, how does the new Senate bill impact this at all? Does it regarding
Bill 840?
Yes.
It really doesn't. That only applies to really commercial areas, and it's multi-use structures where they can now have like residential apartments in them. So it's allowing for more of a mixed use type of situation, and it's gotten rid of the parking minimums, so that's helping them. But for single family neighborhood, it's not going to impact you at all.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So this is the rest of the sample of a petition that we've got. So we do our little spiel on the front and give a little update of the process and how it's going to go. We give the petition items, and then this is the actual petition signature page. That'll be the page that you guys go, or the neighborhood committee goes around and gets signed, and then this will be what you return to us. And that's about it. Are there any other questions?
And thank you for your time and explaining all the options.
Yeah,
Thank
no.
you.
Yeah, and if you guys need another information session, if you guys start to hone in a little bit more on what you guys want regarding boundaries and maybe sorting out your neighborhood committees, if you guys are going to separate, I'm happy to do another information session. This one will be recorded, so actually I'll probably just post this and you can tell neighbors to watch this one if you want. So so yeah. Well, thanks for coming. And if you have any other questions, feel free to email me or call me at the office anytime.
Thank
Will
you.
do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.